Hi, everyone. Greetings, everyone. My name is Assemblywoman Solage, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today on an important discussion regarding home ownership assistance. We know that it's a critical time for homeowners and that there is a need for financial relief. And the state has created so many new programs to help homeowners pay their mortgage, get help with utilities, and reduce their property tax burden. So today we are going to learn about some of these programs and policies and what they mean, and what also it doesn't mean for the end of the protections that are coming about. So, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce the Long Island Housing Service. They are a nonprofit HUD certified housing counseling agency with a mission to assist Long Islanders with their housing needs. And they have a lot of information, and their goal is to help the common individual like yourself who is online. So I encourage you via the chat, or if you're watching live on Facebook, via that chat, to put in your questions. Make sure it's not personal. Don't put any personal information. Keep it general and high level. But organizations like Long Island Housing Service are doing the important work to empower homeowners and their rights. So today's topic, we will include mortgage assistance, foreclosure, and scam prevention, recent COVID updates, and more. Additionally, we will post your questions on our Facebook, and we'll also answer them during a Q&A after. And so our panel, we're joined by Jennifer Brennan. I'm terrible at last names. My brain is so...
yes, it's Breton, thanks.
And Anna Pope, both with Long Island Housing Services, and we thank them for participating in this virtual forum. And so I turn the virtual mic to you, and please, we look forward to this great education that you're providing us.
Well, good evening, and thank you for having us. We're really happy that Assemblymember Solage has invited us to this and for this evening, because it's a very, very important topic, and your home and of course issues of foreclosure are very deep and very wide and very personal. And what we'll do tonight is try and give you an overview. Kind of my goal is to get you information so that you know what your rights are, and so that you're able to protect yourself and your home moving forward. Depending on, I'm going to give some traditional situations for mortgages, but also focus a lot on the current updates with the COVID-19 emergency and a lot of the assistance. And Anna Pope will also be joining this evening and giving you updates on the COVID situation, but also landlord-tenant and housing issues, and some of the programs that are happening with rental assistance. So I guess the best way to start is to tell you a little bit about Long Island Housing Services. And let me see if I can, now I've gone too far. Okay, Long Island Housing Services is a HUD certified organization, and we're supported by, predominantly by the New York State Attorney General's funding through the program for the Homeowner Protection Program called HOP. We also get some other grants and funding. But what's important is that we're a non-for-profit organization set up just for homeowners in the state of New York to protect your rights. And there's no charge for our services. But how it works is this: we have what's called limited representation for legal counseling. And we also offer housing counseling. So we have HUD certified counselors such as Anna Pope, who work with homeowners on reviewing mortgage options and loan modification agreements. And we have some staff attorneys who work to offer legal counseling and assistance. For example, we'll help with answering a summons and complaint, and also representation during a settlement conference, negotiations, and a lot of drafting of letters, I have to say, for mortgage servicers who are not basically providing you with the services they should or you have the right to. So we do a lot of work with lead. And we also do work to help avoid and report foreclosure rescue scams. So I guess the best is to start with the foreclosure prevention basics. We'll talk. A lot of people come to us and they don't seem to understand the difference between who is your servicer and who is the owner of your loan or the investor that owns your loan. The servicer is basically the company that you see on your mortgage statement every month. And they are not necessarily who owns your loan, although they could be. Most loans are broken up into either federally backed loans, such as the government loans programs that are insured by the government programs, such as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the Veterans Association, or the United States Department of Agriculture, which we don't see a lot of on Long Island. And then the rest are FHA loans or they're conventional loans, which are broken down into private banks or investment funds. And depending on who owns your loan is basically flows everything else about your loan. So what is available to you either as COVID relief or measures right now, or whether you have a conventional loan, may flow through you through the New York State law versus the CARES Act. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about this, but I'll try and give you an overview, and then we'll take questions later. So when the first point of contact, somebody who is having any issue with paying their mortgage, the first contact you will have is with your servicer. And basically all of the programs, whether COVID related or not, will be about getting in touch with your servicer, finding out who owns your loans, and then finding out what legal regulations basically apply to your loan. And so when I say that, you know, a mortgage situation is very personal and very different for each person, it's because it depends on when you call with a COVID emergency, what date you started your COVID emergency, and also who owns your loan and what type of a loan it is. So when you call your servicer, it's very important that if you're having trouble paying your mortgage, or at any point if you have an issue with your mortgage, that you keep notes. And I can't stress this enough, to write down on your mortgage statements the date, the time you call, get the customer representative's name. They always have a reference number. Write notes down as to what you're being told. And if they offer you anything, you know, a forbearance or any type of modification, and I'll get into all of that, you'll need to request those in writing. If for any reason you are having trouble, for example, you call your servicer and you ask for a forbearance, which is, you know, basically permission to not pay your loan for a certain amount of time. And a lot of people are in COVID forbearances. I'm sure there's people on the call right now that are involved in them. If you're getting conflicting messages from the servicer, like you're not eligible for a forbearance, or you're out of a forbearance, or one time you call, you're in a forbearance and then you're not, you need to copy down all of these notes. These are all servicer errors. And as soon as you start getting these type of conflicting messages from the servicer, we would recommend you contact a housing organization. Excuse me, there are many on Long Island. You can call the hotline through the New York State Attorney General's office, and they will give you an entire list of housing organizations that can help you with these issues. Of course, Long Island Housing Services is one of them here on Long Island. When you have a problem with your mortgage, there's a number of options. You'll see here, temporary forbearance is listed as number 3. You know, there is the traditional issue of having an issue with paying your mortgage. And we'll call that the traditional route. And then there's the COVID-19 emergency route. And a lot of people are in trouble either from COVID-19, from the pandemic and the economic fallout from the pandemic and the quarantines. Other people were in trouble before the quarantines and COVID-19, but their problems have been either exacerbated or exaggerated or multiplied due to COVID. And so you have 2 different things going on here. And that's why I think it's good for me to point out right now, people often come in and say, my neighbor has been in trouble with their mortgage um, and they've had X, Y, and Z happen. And I can't stress this enough. Each mortgage is totally different. And so what is happening to your neighbor is more than likely not going to be your situation. So it's very important that you get to people who are working in this area and can help you kind of navigate through this. But once you're in trouble with your mortgage or in trouble with paying it, there are a number of options that can occur or be offered to you when you call the servicer. So, and these are a few of them. So one is a forbearance. And in that, they can either traditionally would offer you like a short-term reduction in payment. They may split your payments in half. They may stop you don't have to pay at all for a number of months. And traditionally that would be for a number of different reasons: a medical emergency in your household that is affecting you economically, a death in the family, unemployment, you've lost your job. And in those type of situations, you could call the servicer and ask for a forbearance. And they would generally give one for 3 months or 6 months. They try not to have you get too far behind, because at some point, those payments are referred to as arrears or forborne amounts. And so your monthly payments are starting to kind of, pile up, and that total is on your mortgage statement saying it's due immediately when you come out of your forbearance. Now, in a traditional time, you would be able to either pay in one payment, or they would spread it out over basically a 12-month, usually a 1-year time, or they would offer you some sort of modification. You could put in what's called a mortgage assistance application, which basically changes the terms of the loan. And sometimes the offers are better than others. You don't have a lot of control in what they're going to offer you, but they may change the length of your loan, extend it. They may change your interest rate, but they can play a little bit with that. And then, of course, your other options are if they're not going to offer you some way of paying it off, or if the loan has become unaffordable in your current economic situation, you can either have the choice to sell your house, even though you're in a foreclosure. If there's enough equity in there to pay off the mortgage and any of the debts that are listed as liens on the property, you can sell your house and protect your equity. If your house has fallen under the value of the mortgage and the debt, well, basically under the value of the mortgage, then you go into a process that's called a short sale, that the bank has to approve somebody buying your house for an amount that's actually less than the mortgage. Or you can do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which is basically you hand over the keys, sign over the deed, and they will cancel the foreclosure. Now, those two processes, short sale and a deed in lieu, are very complicated, have a lot of contracts that you'll be signing with the bank. And if you ever get to that point, I would recommend you definitely have an attorney who's experienced in that area, because it can be very important to understand what you're signing. I'll just give you a quick example. If you are doing a deed in lieu and you're going to sell the house, there's generally a period of time where you move out of the house and it's left empty. If you have not put the correct provisions into the contract, you could still be liable for whatever happens to the house and not the bank. And so if you're handing over the keys and handing over the deed, you want to make sure that the bank has liability for that aspect. So now most people, when they go into a forbearance, so I'm going to try and give you an overview here. When they come out of a forbearance, whether a traditional one or a COVID one, you will be most likely desiring some sort of a modification to your loan. So you have these arrears kind of building up at the back of the loan. Maybe you've missed 10 payments and you owe, something in an order of, let's say, 15,000 for 10 payments. That's sitting now at the due, basically, to bring your loan current. And so what the bank can do, or the servicer, is make an agreement with modifying, like I said, the length of the loan and also any other terms of the mortgage, such as the length of the loan, the interest rate, your payments, and they can basically restructure or modify the terms of your loan. And to do that, you generally have to put in, your pay stubs, to maybe 2 bank statements, recent bank statements, the pay stubs showing proof of income. If you're making cash income in any way, you want to make sure that that income is going through your bank account so that you can document to the bank what you're making, where the income is coming from, how much you make per month, and where it's going, so that they can see very clearly with your paperwork that you have enough money to afford that monthly mortgage payment. Even if it's modified, you also need to be able to show that you can pay a modified amount of the mortgage plus the escrow amount. If you're paying escrow, and most people are, through their mortgage payments, they're paying their property taxes and their house insurance. So whereas they can modify the terms of the principal and interest due on your mortgage, they cannot change at all your escrow amount. So the amount that is owed monthly for your property taxes and property insurance. So all of these things need to be documented. And when you do an application for a modification, there's a few issues that come up. And generally what you'll see is they'll give you an application, which you need to fill in very detailed and very neatly, because if they can't read your writing, or if they misread your writing, your numbers or whatnot, they'll make a decision based on that, or a denial based on that. They're not going to come back or call you up and say, what did you write here? So they just move ahead with the application. If you don't have the right documents or the right dates on the documents, you send 2 bank statements, but they're from, 3 months ago. Instead of June and July, you have May and June. You'll get something called a missing document letter. And this should all be in the packet, by the way, for the mortgage assistance application. They should say to you whether you need income tax returns or a tax document filled out, how many pay stubs you need, how to document income if it's not, regular W-2 income, your bank statements, what is your household income, who's living in the house, how much money can they contribute, who's on the mortgage. If there's 2 people on the mortgage, they'll be looking at that, but you can always put in household contributions, and they'll look at this whole package in its entirety. If any information is missing, what occurs is that they will send you a missing document letter. And what often happens at this point is they'll say, oh, you're missing, we need another pay stub. But what you have to keep in mind is that the documents are only good for 60 days. So if it takes them 30 days to look at your application and you don't have enough bank statements or documentation of your income, by the time they send you that letter, you've got to get those response documents in as soon as possible. Don't wait that 30 days you have according to that letter, because then what happens is the other documents become what's called stale. And then you end up in this cycle of constantly with these letters basically requesting documents and then constantly trying to catch up. And this can cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. Another thing I would say when it comes to modification, applications is once you've put it in, try and stay in contact with, if you're working with a housing counselor or somebody in the servicer, contact and see what's going on. Stay in touch with them. It's really, really important if you're having trouble with your mortgage that you open your mail. We've had clients who've come in, for example, and they may have been offered a modification agreement in the mail. But like many people, if you're in trouble with your home, you're in trouble in a lot of areas in your life financially. And so a lot of people stop reading their mail. When it comes to your mortgage, this can be just disastrous for you. In this one case I was just going to bring up, we had a woman come into the office, and it turned out she just stopped opening her mail, or she would open it up, glance at it and throw it away. And she was offered a modification agreement and she never opened it, wasn't aware of it. By the time it became clear that she had been offered this, the case had moved on and she was in a foreclosure proceeding, and there was no going back to that. One other thing I would say that's really important about if you're looking at a modification is to save as much money as possible. If you're asking the bank and saying to the bank, we can afford this monthly mortgage payment, you should be able to set that aside into a savings account. There's kind of this idea sometimes with people that they should be showing that they don't have money to pay the mortgage, and therefore, they should be given a break. But you need to be able to document that you will be able to pay that mortgage. And if the bank won't accept that payment right now, and even if you have a substantial amount of arrears, at some point you want to be showing that this situation has changed, has turned around. So in the mortgage assistance application, there's often what is needed is what's called a hardship letter. And in that letter, you state, what is the reason that you defaulted on the mortgage? Whether it's, like I said, unemployment or a medical situation or a death in the family or increased bills, some disaster with the house, with your family. There's many, many reasons that are fine to list as the hardship in your case, but basically at the end of the letter, you want to be saying, this was the agony and the ecstasy. This was what went terribly wrong. But now, it's good. And although we're behind, in this amount of arrears, we can now pay our mortgage payment if you can readjust our mortgage. And so what you want to be doing is if your payment was $1,500 a month, you want to be at some point when you're going for the modification agreement, taking that $1,500 a month and sticking it in a savings account to show that you can in fact afford that mortgage. So I would recommend that. Now, that's kind of an overview of how that works with the servicer up to in a traditional time. Right now, with the COVID emergency, there are a lot of measures that are going on. So there's a lot of people on Long Island, in the state of New York, and across the country who are now or have been in a COVID-19 forbearance. And if you have a conventional loan, that's really operating through a New York state law that you are eligible and legally entitled to that forbearance. And if you have a government-backed loan, that is basically running through the CARES Act. So the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, FHA loans are all giving you the COVID forbearance through the CARES Act. Now, there's a lot of deadlines coming up right now. You see there's been moratoriums for both through the CARES Act and also through New York state law, through the administrative law of the courts. And the moratorium in New York is really the one that's ruling right now, because although the moratoriums are ending for federally backed mortgages, so the FHA, Fannie Mae, that the moratoriums are ending July 31st of this month. Now, for the state of New York, that's not really the ruling date right now, because New York state courts, if you have a COVID emergency, are if you've put in what's called a hardship declaration, which was a form or in a forbearance with your mortgage servicer, you can't be evicted from your house. They won't push forward the court cases or anything else if you file this hardship declaration saying you've been affected by COVID. So all of those cases are adjourned until after August 31st. If you have a problem with your mortgage right now, that you're in a foreclosure proceeding and you have been affected by COVID, you can go online to the New York State Court, and it's newyorkstatecourts.gov. I have the website later in the presentation, and they will, you can download the form and you can mail it to the court, and the case should be adjourned till after August 31st. So you see here the important dates for the COVID emergency assistance is the moratoriums. So that's about the evictions and moving ahead with court cases, and certain rules and laws about the stays for bankruptcy. But importantly, the forbearances right now, people can still, if you're affected by COVID now and you weren't 6 months ago, or you didn't realize you were eligible for a forbearance, you can apply for a forbearance now. Still, So if you have an FHA loan, you have until September 30th to apply for forbearance of your mortgage. If you have a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed loan, there's still no deadline right now to apply for the initial forbearance. A VA and the Department of Agricultural loans are also September 30th. And the New York State 9X regulation, which is our banking law that is making possible forbearance on private conventional loans or investment trust loans. And those are still available until December 31st. All of this is subject to change, and it's been constantly changing. So whenever I talk about anything to do with the COVID emergency rules and regulations, or what's happening with those mortgages that have been affected by COVID, it's all subject to change. And I'll show you this chart just to give you an idea of how much this is changing. This is it just if for an FHA mortgage. The first column shows these different dates and when people started their first forbearance. So if you went into a forbearance last March at the start of the pandemic, you have, if you go across, you can get different extensions and you can get up to 18 months of forbearance. If you apply today for a forbearance and you're in that fourth line down and you get 6 months of forbearance. So they're very, very different depending on what dates people have started their forbearance, what they're eligible for the extensions. And then what's going to happen, though, at a certain point, like a lot of people will start coming out of forbearances with the federally backed mortgages come around October 1st. We see servicers coming up with different dates anywhere in August, September, October 1st for these forbearances to end. Well, right now they've just come out with a lot of new COVID regulations that are aimed at basically the servicer contacting you and being able to offer you a certain type of modification in which you will not have to submit any type of paperwork. So it's called what's called an incomplete application. So as before where I was talking about that you have to submit pay stubs or bank statements or this or that, with the federally backed loans, there's a lot of regulations that have just come out where they may be offering you one of two different things right off the bat without any paperwork from you. And for an FHA loan, that's called the ALM. And for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, they're all doing what's called flex modifications. In these type of modifications, what is happening is the bank is looking at basically just the finances of your home. And their goal is to be able to drop your principal and interest payments by certain percentages, whether it's 20%, 25%, or get you under where you are now while taking care of the arrears. And so what they're doing is they look at your mortgage, they stretch it over 30 years for an FHA or 40 years for a Freddie Mac or a Fannie Mae, and they're lowering the interest rates to basically the prime interest rate now with a little bit of points on top of it. The goal is to basically give you a sort of refinance of your own mortgage, and it's not based on your economic situation. There's also available a lot of payment deferrals where they can take the amounts that of arrears, so what the foreborn payments, the payments that have accumulated during your forbearance, and they can stick them at the end of the mortgage, and then you resume your regular mortgage payment. There's a lot of different ways how this all works, and I don't want to go into all the details, but it should either sit at the back of your loan as a lump sum non-interest bearing amount. So there should be no fees or penalties or additional interest accruing on that amount. It should just sit at the end. And then what happens is if you sell your home or your loan becomes mature, this lump sum will be sitting there that needs to be paid off. These can take a lot of different structures depending on which loan you have and how they modify it. With the COVID New York State Banking Law 9X COVID forbearance, that's on a conventional loan or a loan that has been bought and bundled into a trust. the same thing is happening. You have the 12 months of forbearance. In that, you have to actually show that you've been financially affected by COVID. So they may request bank statements from you at some point during your forbearance. That generally seems to be happening after 6 months, where you have to put in an application or some sort of documentation showing that your pre-COVID household income has been affected and your COVID household income is lower. When you come out of that forbearance, you as the borrower have the right to select what kind of post-forbearance option you would like. You can either take the amount that's due as the arrears, the forborne payment, and spread that over the lifetime of the loan. You can take it if you've missed 10 payments, they'll just add 10 payments at the end of your loan. So if your loan came mature January of 2040, now instead of January, you're in October of 2040. So you just continue to pay the amounts. You could work out a modification with the servicer. And if the servicer won't give you the modification, then they can defer that whole lump sum payment to the end in a non-interest bearing account. So I'm just going to try and give you an overview. If you have issues or you're not back at work and you haven't been able to work out some sort of modification, either you were already in default before COVID, or you were in default because of COVID, but you're not working, and so a modification isn't going to help you, or you get a modification, say you get a CARES Act type of modification, and then you lose your job after that again, or something else affects you, you might be eligible to get a different type of modification, or you might end up in a foreclosure process. And I just want to go through this really quickly so that people understand the importance of responding to some of these things. When a case is started against you for a foreclosure, you will be served with a summons and complaint. And it's a big, thick stack of papers with brightly colored documents giving you different housing organizations that can help you file and serve an answer to the summons and complaint. And it tells you basically about the whole process. I have some websites here at the bottom of this page that are very helpful, that tell you how to answer a complaint for any type of case, by the way, if you're ever having a legal issue, and also how to track your case on the Web Civil site below, the last one. But basically, when you are filed with a summons and complaint, and I just want to emphasize this, it is really, really important that you file an answer to the summons and complaint. You have 2 shots to do so for a foreclosure matter, which is the only time you will get 2 times to be able to submit an answer. Generally, when you're served a summons and complaint, depending on how it is served upon you, so if it's physically handed to you, you have 20 days to get an answer in. If it is physically handed to your 15-year-old daughter and another copy is sent in the mail, or they duct tape a copy to your front door and send you a copy in the mail, you have 30 days to submit an answer to the court. Also, you'll go into what's called a settlement conference, which is done for foreclosure process procedures, and which came out of the 2008-2009 mortgage crisis to help the courts kind of deal with foreclosures. And it basically is an adjournment to your court process where you sit down with a referee appointed by the court, the bank attorney, and yourself, and you get another shot trying to work out a modification agreement, or to come to some sort of payment of the arrears in the mortgage so that the court case doesn't move forward against you. You have 30 days after that first settlement conference, if you have not already filed an answer in your case, to get the answer in. A lot of people think, oh, I'm working on a mortgage modification application and the bank is working with me, or I have this great person at the servicer. That's not often said. And so I'm going ahead with modification. I don't need an answer. You do need an answer. If you have not submitted an answer in your case and it is not worked out through some sort of a modification, the case will move ahead against you as if you're not even there. You're not in the case without an answer. So even if you can always amend an answer, but it is very, very difficult to get an answer in if you have not filed it in time. It's a very specific legal process to do so. And there are organizations that can help you. We can help you at Long Island Housing Services, Nassau Suffolk Law Services can help, NILAG, New York Lawyers Assistance, Legal Assistance, they can help you. And so the Nassau County Bar Association has programs to help you. There's a lot to help you get the answer. There are two different things. One is the modification and one is to get the answer in. If you don't get the answer in and the case, your case is released from settlement conference and it goes forward into the Supreme Court appearances, basically the bank attorney will move for a motion in order to foreclose and sell your house. And if you're not in the case, there is nothing to fight. They can move pretty easily against you. If you have filed your answer, the second thing I would really want to tell you about is the settlement conferences, because you can show up or be involved in a settlement conference without an attorney and just represent yourself. But it's really important that you understand that that referee is there basically to help you negotiate or see if there's a possibility for a modification that can keep you in your house and also get the bank being paid again. And so when you're sitting in that settlement conference, if you don't understand something that's going on, you need to stop them and say, I'm sorry, what does that mean? What they're going to be looking for from you is, are you back to work? How much money is, what is the household income? Can you start a payment plan? What happened? Why did you default? And how is it different now? And so it's going to be a lot of that same documentation and a conversation. And you have to go in there and be an advocate for yourself and say, that story, you know, this was the hardship and this is how it's changed at this point. A bank, you can always get a servicer to look at a new modification application, a new mortgage assistance application. Say you put one in and they denied it. Now it's 6 months later, you're in a settlement conference, or you've just had a summons and complaint. You can always send another mortgage assistance application into the servicer, and they must look at it if there's been a change in your financial circumstances. So if your household income has increased, if your bills have decreased, if sometimes people will consult with a bankruptcy attorney to get rid of the debt that they're paying on credit cards and other unsecured debt that they can remove so that they have more money available to them. These are all reasons to submit another mortgage assistance application, and you can put a mortgage assistance application in for a change of financial circumstances right up until 37 days before a sale is scheduled on your home. And the servicer and the bank will have to look at that application to see if it can help you stay in your home. So one other point I wanted to make here is with co-ops and condos. We don't do a lot of work at Long Island Housing Services for co-ops and condos, in like a sense of their homeowners association foreclosures. Right now, what we've been seeing is an issue that's kind of, I don't know, it's slipping through here. I think it's always a little bit of an issue. But even if you are in a forbearance on your condo or co-op for the mortgage, so the mortgage is fine, you know, you've gotten your COVID forbearance. If you are not paying your homeowners association fees, the homeowners association can basically file a summons and complaint on you to foreclose on your condo or co-op. And this can be for relatively small amounts of money. If you've missed 4 or 5 of your homeowners association fees, they can start a proceeding against you. They are not regulated by New York State's Department of Finance or New York State banking laws because it is not a mortgage, it's not a loan, it's a contract. And so there are no rights to settlement conferences. There's no protections because of COVID-19 or financial hardships for your homeowners association. So be very careful not to, one, make sure you file an answer in those cases because they can work out a repayment plan with you. But that still doesn't mean that you are not in that case until you file an answer. So even if you say, oh, well, I've worked out a repayment plan, it's fine, still file an answer to the case because if you default on that repayment plan, they can just move ahead with a foreclosure proceeding against you. And if you haven't submitted an answer, again, you're not actually in the case, and they can move pretty quickly to foreclose against you. I'm going to try and speed this up a little. So the mortgage rescue scams, there's a number of scams that are always come up when there are a number of, especially if there's large amounts of homeowners who are in duress or defaulting on mortgage payments, which is the case right now. And with the mortgage rescue scams, I would say this to you: if they are calling you or they are writing you, they are not a non-for-profit there to help you. So that means they're going to make money off of you. It means that they're tracking down the list of foreclosures, or they're looking at who's defaulting on their loans, because a lot of things are these facts are in public records and public documents, and they track this down and look up whose address this is through the tax records, find out who lives there, and they get in touch with you. We will hear about these scams there. Companies from Florida or Texas or California. It used to be simpler where you could say to people, well, if it's somebody from California, they don't know anything about New York State foreclosure law. This is New York State. Get an attorney from New York State. Get somebody to represent you from New York State who's familiar with the law of New York State. But it's even gotten, I think, more difficult to sort these out because they're using Google numbers. So maybe they're calling you through Hempstead, or you see a number pop up and it's the town next to you. You think it's an attorney calling you from the town next to you. There is mortgage. So like I was saying before, Anna Pape is a housing counselor at Long Island Housing Services. She works with people, helping them to do mortgage assistance applications, to get a modification. It is a free service. If somebody is contacting you or anybody that you know and has this high pressure sales tactic, we can help you, but you need to sign up right now and, give us access to your bank account, and this will cost you, I don't know, $2,000, $5,000. We've heard crazy amounts. We'll file a mortgage assistance application for you. It is free by anywhere through the HOP network, which is paid for by the New York State Department of the Attorney General's office. So there is no need to be paying $2,000 or $5,000 to somebody contacting you this way. They will tell you that they're going to get you out of it, or they're going to get you funds. And if anybody contacts you like that, you should be reaching out to either somebody in your local government to see if it's a real organization, or to be looking for organizations that can help you. I'm going to skip through this a little bit. I just want to talk about the Homeowners Assistance Fund that should be coming out and available sometime this fall. We were originally hoping for September. It looks more like October. And that is basically from the funds that the President Biden made available through the American Recovery Act back in, I think that was February or March. New York State is to receive, they applied for it, and we should receive $540 million in federal funding to help homeowners. These look like they're going to be grants that will be given to homeowners who have arrears that are COVID related. So it could be mortgage arrears, your principal, your mortgage payments. It can be property tax arrears. It can be utility arrears. We don't know the exact specifics of what it will be. The program is going through basically a regulation kind of process right now, and will come out with specific, eligibility requirements. One of the things we do know is that the homeowner, the person who's going to get these funds, must show that they and demonstrate that they will be able to sustain their monthly mortgage going forward. So you need to be able to show that you can sustain the payments on your house. And the way that you're going to be able to do that is much like the mortgage assistance application. So they'll be looking to see what the household income is. Can you document it? What are the bills? But I would say to you, just keep your eyes out in the news. Make sure you're paying attention to what's going on with the Homeowners Assistance Fund. And as soon as it becomes available, move to get that application in. Be saving your bank statements, be saving your mortgage statements, be saving your pay stubs. keep throwing them all in a box so that you have it available to be able to quickly put it together, because it will, I'm sure, be a first come, first serve situation. And you want to be getting your application in for that soon and finding out if you're eligible as soon as it comes out. There's also programs out there for utility bills arrears. Although the moratorium ended June 24th, there's an additional 180-day grace period that I think people are getting to know more about right now. But if you're behind on your electric, your gas, your water, telephone, broadband, cable, you can call your provider right now. If you certify that you've had a change in financial circumstances due to COVID, they should be giving you an additional 100 days of grace period to not have to pay those. At this point, I think it'd be good to turn this over to Anna and have her talk a little bit about landlord-tenant situations where homeowners have a rental unit in their house and their payment of their mortgage, taxes, insurance, and other costs are dependent on those payments. So I'll let Anna take over from here.
Thank you, Jennifer. What a wonderful presentation. I just would like to add, or maybe I don't want to repeat what Jennifer said, but it's important to say that we help for free. Jennifer explained how we work. I just want to let homeowners know that we're gonna need your help in order to help you. What that means? That means we're gonna need some of your. It's not gonna be not even if you pay the best attorney in New York to go to your house and get the documents from your drawers, you know. So you have to put the effort to help us and provide us all the documentation that we require in order to help. We provide free services, but we need some steps. The first step is the disclosures and authorizations. So first time we get in touch with clients, we say, okay, we're gonna need your disclosures and the authorizations so we can work on your case. It's something like we have to do because we have auditors from HUD and other grantors who watch on us. So another important piece of information we're gonna need is your budget. So once we have your budget, we can figure it out and we can advise you better and explore your options. As Jennifer explained, there are many products in the market, and we don't know exactly for what product your lender offer you. You could be FHA, what type of loan you have. So depending on that, and depending on your situation and how you're doing right now, especially in this crisis, we're going to explore your options. So and we're going to need, besides the disclosures and the budget, we're gonna need all the documents that are very important, and it's a step-by-step, like your mortgage statement. If we're gonna apply for you for a loan modification, or we're gonna apply for another program, we're gonna need, well, your pay stubs, your bank statements, everything. It is exactly like Jennifer explained, it's in time frames. So we're gonna need your help in order to help you. So we're going to jump now to landlords and tenants situations during this COVID. When landlords, they are relating on rental income. I know this could be such a stressful time, especially when your tenants say, I cannot pay the rent right now because I'll be affected by COVID. I lost my job or something. And part of your mortgage or your mortgage is being paid by the rental income that you have. So everybody has rights and everybody has responsibilities. In this particular crisis, I'm always going to recommend and advise to be very empathic, to be very tolerant, and negotiate it. If you are a landlord, negotiate it with your tenant, because if this case is going to be ending in court, you're going to have to negotiate it in court, and you're going to have to accept a repayment plan. So if your tenant is offering you a partial payment or something, I have clients and say, no, I don't gonna accept. I don't want that. I want all the rent. We have to understand all the situations that people is going through. So it's better about partial payment than no pay. And it's better to settle or start receiving that payment now and not wait for the court procedures and all that stuff when you can maybe have some of the arrears on the rent. And never, please never, if you are a homeowner and you are, it's very stressful for your rental income, it's not coming, and your tenant is not moving, be careful. Do not take in your hands an eviction and incur an illegal evictions. It's something like we are seeing very often. Or starting to threaten your tenant. If you don't pay me, I'm gonna throw your stuff, or I'm gonna cut the service, or I'm gonna shut it off the electricity. I'm paying the electricity, I'm paying water. So be careful, because this become a misdemeanor class A, and you can be in jail. So please be careful on that. As there are some steps, and if you have to evict your tenant, you are in your right to evict your tenant, but you have to do through the court. You have to give the notice, the right notice. If it's a tenant who has a lease or a month-to-month tenant, is a process. You have to notify. If it's some situations that the lease is break, so you can notify. If it's a month-to-month tenant, you also can notify and send a 30, 60, or 90 days notice. You can call us. We can advise you how to do that, or give you the steps, the right steps. And then you can take the next step to the court. So if your tenant unfortunately was affected, truly affected by COVID, maybe going to file, your tenant going to file the hardship letter to or the hardship form to the court, and also to you or to your attorney, to say, I need to be protected under the moratorium. Once the moratorium is over, the court procedures, they're going to be rolling again. But we have to follow the rules, and we cannot get desperate. I know it's very stressful situation right now, especially for landlords, who they call me and say, I can't. I mean, and my tenant is not moving. Well, there are some ways, but this is a particular situation that we're living right now. You know, never do illegal eviction. On the other hand, if you are a tenant and you know your landlord is not paying the rent, I'm sorry, is not paying the mortgage, and you say, oh, you know what, I just received something from court that my landlord is facing foreclosure. I don't think this is fair. I don't want to pay my rent anymore. That is not true. The lender institution and your landlord, they have a particular situation and an agreement that is not, that doesn't involve the tenant in the equation. So be careful, because you can, as a tenant, assuming like is paying the mortgage has been paying for the rent that you paying, or any other situation is you are assuming, you can put in jeopardy your landlord that maybe is relying on your rent to apply for a modification, because rental income also we can take in the applications as part of the financial support. So if you decide to don't pay the rent, first of all, that's not right. It's something like between the landlord and his or her lender institutions. Nothing to do with the tenants. You still have to pay your rent. But they say, well, what happens if the house is going to be in foreclosure and I'm going to be homeless? It's going to be some steps. If you have a lease, your lease most likely going to be honoring by the new by the bank or whoever is going to take the house. If you are a month-to-month tenant, you're going to have 90 days, or depending, you also have some rights. Okay, so don't get desperate. I know this is very stressful situation, but you can call us, you can discuss with us the situation. We can explain you how the law works, what are the steps to, and most likely the negotiation. You know, it's always open a door for a negotiation. If you are a tenant, if you are a landlord, it's only a space for negotiation. And maybe we can avoid to go to court and expend more money, maybe in an attorney. Unfortunately, Long Island Housing Services, we don't have attorneys for landlord-tenant cases. I have to refer to another organizations like National Suffolk Loan Services. But National Suffolk Loan Services also, they have some rules and they can take some particular cases. Number one, if the case is already in court. Number two, only if the client has social security number. For people who has no social security numbers, they are another organization, but the help is very limited because they rely on volunteers to help, attorneys who are volunteers right now, like Empire Justice, for instance, or other organizations. But that's why I think it's always good a negotiation and be flexible on both parts, landlords and tenants. I understand all the situations. If you're a landlord, definitely we can help you to explore your options. If you're a tenant, we can guide you and see what are the other options, but that you have. So about resources available, we have a lot of calls, and they ask, how can I get rental assistance? Well, right now it's very diverse, the help, and each town has different resources. Each town has different rules, but in general, I can tell, like, they're going to request a lot of cooperation from your landlord. So if you are not in a condo, if you are not in a development and complex apartments, if you are in a private rental house, it's a very high percent that maybe you are in an illegal rental. The reason why that is happening is because many people in Long Island, many landlords, they just rent part of the houses, or maybe a basement, or some rooms or something to help them with the expenses, but they don't have the rental permit, or they don't have the COs from the town. And that is a problem. When the town finds out, the landlord gonna have tickets. And sometimes the landlords, they don't do the COs and the stuff because they say, well, now I'm gonna have the permit for rent, but on the other hand, I'm gonna have huge amount of taxes bump up in my bill. So it is something like we will like to resolve in the future after this pandemic crisis is over. About the taxes situation here in Long Island. I know everybody who owns a house, they can tell, I know taxes are crazy here in New York, especially in Long Island. But anyway, that's a situation that is pushing many landlords to shush and just rent whatever they need to rent to pay the mortgage or pay whatever they need. So sometimes these programs, they are not going to work for that type of tenants, because the landlord going to say, I don't want to open the Pandora box and say to the town, hey, I'm renting without a permit, or renting something without the COs. That is a situation that is, in one hand, they should have the permits, and the other hand, I understand many people say tax is gonna go crazy, but if it's not putting the tenant's life in jeopardy, just work with your tenant, right? And always call your town to find out what is available for you. Maybe it's a new programs. I was talking with people from different towns, especially here in Suffolk County, and they're going to have like a tier 2 programs where, considering this situation, they don't gonna go deep in the permits, and maybe I don't know how it's gonna work, but each town gonna work different. So my advice, when you need a rental assistance, please go and call your town and speak with any organization near in your area that is helping people to do applications. Here in Suffolk, we have, for example, Cepa Mujer. Cepa Mujer is helping with applications for the town I sleep, for the town of Brewhaven, but that's it. I don't know exactly what organizations maybe are working in Nassau County, but you can, maybe Google it, or if you know any other organizations like CDC, they have Nassau and Suffolk, maybe they are helping. Just give a call. If I know any organization in Nassau County and you call me, maybe I can help you to explore who is helping with that. But the big resource, and I think the best phone call you can do is to your town. Find out who town you have, who's your town, call and find out what are the resources available. Well, and another advice that Jennifer also says, call your service provider. Maybe they have plans for utilities, maybe they have, but that's no rental assistance, that's for utilities, but also it works for tenants and also for landlords. Tenants that they have the utilities on their names, they can get some help, they can get the break, they can get the deals, but always call and knock the doors. And find out what are the programs, because this is rolling, this is all the time, they are changing. We are going to have maybe in the future, when the moratorium is over and we can see like actually evictions through the court, we're going to see probably all the grants. And as soon I know more information, because right now it's just some grants and we don't know how it's going to work because the moratorium is not over. As soon I have the information, I'm going to be able to share that information with Mrs. Solage's office, and any other organizations also going to be able to know the information. So always be in touch with non-for-profit organizations in your area. So Jennifer, am I forgetting something? Or
Well, I think two things. I'm not sure how we're going to open this up to questions, but we seem to be running late. But I just want to put two points out there. I do believe the Village of Hempstead has a program for the property taxes to help homeowners in the village proper for back or arrears in property taxes. And I believe the town of Hempstead also has is administrating its own emergency rental assistance program. So what Anna is saying is absolutely correct. Get in touch with your local and town governments and see what programs that they have and how that's functioning. And now I'll hand it back. I see Assembly Member Solage is back, so we'll welcome her back and let her take over here.
Jennifer, Anna, thank you so much for all that comprehensive review about assistance. It's really important that people have that information. And since this is live on Facebook and we're also going to post it on YouTube, people can refer back to it as needed. But once again, you made a couple of good points. Be careful for scams. There's always people trying to steal people's money and hurt individuals. Also, if you need help, there are free organizations such as yours that are there to help. And so, if you need help, always request that help. And I brought up a point about property tax relief. In the last budget, we did actually extend or create a program for property tax relief. So when you file your taxes next year, you'll be able to have a personal income tax credit, and that's for residential homeowners. And there's certain qualifications that need to apply. I'm going to put an article about the program in the chat. So if anyone's interested, they can read the article about how they can get access to that. But at the end of the day, we have free services like the Long Island Housing Services that will be there to answer your questions or guide you to where there's additional support and help. So I just want to thank you so much. With regards to questions, I tell everyone feel free to put your question in the chat. One question that was mentioned, and Anna, you alluded to this. If you have limited English proficiency, so if you speak another language, where could you go for assistance and help? Because I know that it might be intimidating to see all that documentation. As you said, it's a lot of it sometimes is like legal jargon, that it's a language of itself. Where can they go for help?
Okay, normally the non-for-profits, we have a line when we don't have somebody who is bilingual. In Long Island Housing Services, we have bilingual staff for English and Spanish. But if it's another language, we can use a special line that we have access. So I believe many organizations, they use this type of line. If you are talking about organizations like us, if you need help from the police, they should provide you assistance in your language. That's different story, but I think the question is more related to organizations like us to find out help, right?
Yes, really it's just for I guess the person wanted to know, like, if they just didn't understand or have a huge comprehension of the English language, where could they go for assistance? And you answered the question. You have the ability to help them, and you have translators or translating services to help them. Another question, and this one I thought of in the beginning when you were talking. Where do you start? It might be intimidating. You have all this paperwork on your desk, and frequently at our office we always get a call from individuals whose houses are about to get auctioned. So literally, like the auction is happening, 3 or 4 days, in 3 or 4 days, and they just said they're overwhelmed and intimidated. Where do you think a person should start?
Yeah, I will jump in with that one because I think I was trying to get to that a little earlier. The first thing you need to do is open your mail. I mean, that's so many people when they get into these situations, and it's totally natural. I mean, you're going through something that's pretty traumatic. It's your home. It's the dream to own the home. Everything is wrapped up in there. And if you're in this situation, it means things are going financially wrong for you. So you're probably being bombarded with letters from, different attorneys and groups who are going to help you. What you need to do is get a box and put all the letters in there that you're getting from the servicer, from the mortgage, from your bank, and call one of these housing organizations. There's a list that you can get of free housing homeowners assistance programs, especially here on Long Island in Nassau County, that can help you sort through these papers. But like what Anna was saying, you have to help us. The more you keep the paperwork, the more we can step in and give you and explain to you your options that are available to you. And it's better sooner than later. Get involved, be your own advocate. There's so many things available to you, and New York really protects homeowners. There's the settlement conferences, there's negotiations, there's mortgage assistance applications, there's so many things. There are people out there who can help you through this process. Don't do it alone, and don't wait to the last minute.
You're right. The system does favor homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's just all about getting organized and just asking for help.
Yep.
Really. And don't wait. Like I said, there's so many people who've called our office and literally they're at the point where their house is being auctioned. And, there's not much that could be done at that point, so just don't delay. I like how you write it on top of there. Just don't delay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there anything else? if we don't have many questions, please feel free to put the questions in the chat. But is there anything else you'd like to say before I give closing remarks?
I think the only other point I really want to emphasize is that the COVID emergency options and relief is constantly changing. So the points of what I'm telling now as to what mortgage assistance options are available at the end of the forbearance, or how the forbearances are running, or how much time for a forbearance, have all been changing on a continuous basis. As the government kind of sees where the housing market is going and how many people are in default and having trouble, they are stepping up to kind of try and give relief. So it's important that you stay on top of the situation, and again, reach out to housing organizations that can help you kind of navigate through all of this and know what changes are coming. And that I will thank the Assembly member for having us, because I think it's a really, really important issue. So I think it's great that you held this event.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking your time on a summer night to provide this information. And anything else?
Well, no, besides to, again, help you for this opportunity, I think information, it's the key for many, to resolve many situations, or at least to find out a little hope. A lot of people call us very desperate, and I say, I wish I know this information. I wish I know you exist long time ago, because we know we are living stressful time for homeowners, for tenants as well. My main program is foreclosure prevention, but as Jennifer say, I'm taking care a lot of calls, especially for Spanish speakers, for landlord-tenant, and it is only a way. So don't get agitated. Be patient. Ask questions. Call us, and never broke the law.
I like that. Do everything above board. Yeah, and Jennifer, thank you once again. I really appreciate your knowledge and your time as well. Thank you, and continue doing the good work. And just to all the attendees, to everyone watching on Facebook, I appreciate your time as well. Please share this video on your social media. You might never know who in your network might need this information. Foreclosure is an issue that I think it's affect all of us, whether it's someone that we know or it's us ourselves. So just share the information. Knowledge is power. And for more information about the Long Island Housing Services and the resources they provide, you could please visit their website at lifairhousing.org. Additionally, should you have any questions, concerns, comments, you always can contact my office at 516-599-2972, or email me at solagesm@nyassembly.gov. My team, I appreciate them. I extend my appreciation to everything that they do, and they can answer your questions or direct you to where you can get the help and support. So once again, Jennifer, Anna, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to Long Island Housing Services providing this vital resource. Take care and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.